And we talked about last week about, freedom, the ability, the freedom to execute what is known, execute an action that is known to bring about a specific outcome. We basically stated last week that you are aware of exactly what it is to do, but you are unable to execute that which you know is correct because you're under the influence of the serpent. And so we're going to continue on with that theme of free execution, or the ability to execute freely, and how that brings you into this concept of omniscience, or how you are able to experience knowledge of self through that experience. But we're going to continue on with that today, and we're going to discuss the power of freedom within relationships. So today we're going to talk a little bit about relationships in conjunction to the principles of this free will or free execution. Inadvertently, throughout our relationships and things of that nature, we've kind of put ourselves in a position of enslavement to our spouse or to our partner. We've been trained to do so because we have come to associate the object of the person with the fulfillment of our ego. And in the Maasa society, we call that the false love. But we have come to objectify our partners versus their abilities and what they bring to the table to increase the well-being of our families. Now, it wasn't always this way. This concept of love was something that was given to us by the conquering through the Greeks, where the Greeks created this concept of eros, where they tied the sensual fulfillment, sensual desire, sexual desire to the object from which that particular person fulfilled that sensual desire from. So we created this eros by which it connected sensual desire to the object, and we called it love. And so when you are in love with somebody, by means that you are associating the object of that person with the fulfillment of your program, you have enslaved yourself to the passions and whims of that person. So you are under the authority of the passions and whims of that person through falling in love with that person and allowing your life success to be under the rulership and domain of your partner. We have done this many times. When you find yourself in this state, your happiness, your success, everything that you know that is necessary for you is at the mercy of how this other person behaves, how this other person acts, how this other person looks, and so on and so on. So as long as this person can behave a certain way, as long as this person is good at certain things, as long as this person looks good, smells good, acts good, sex good, drives a nice car good, you are okay with being under the enslavement of that particular person. So therefore, through your concept of being in love, you're calling this person your master. You were not created to be enslaved. Your consciousness, that which makes you an expression of the source, is not built to be in servitude, to be enslaved to people. You're not here to be in servitude to your spouse. You're not here to be enslaved by your spouse. You're here to function in a relationship to bring about a specific outcome. You are here to experience this concept of relationship and family to produce a specific thing necessary for the society to manifest success. The cells in our body don't go to a central authority cell and ask them what to do. The cells are configured to function according to their defined responsibilities. And when all the cells manifest in a certain way, the body reaches what we call homeostasis, by which all the functions are functioning at a high level, and therefore that person is in health and wellness. But when a cell doesn't perform its responsibility, it turns into a cancer, and therefore that cancer grows and eventually destroys the body. A family is based upon being productive. You're supposed to produce something that not only increases your wealth and well-being, but it also increases the society wealth and well-being. You cannot do that if you are under the authority, if you are enslaved, if you are functioning within a relationship as that other person being your master. You'll never reach the highest expression of productivity that family must do, not only for society, but for all the individual pieces within that relationship. But this concept of objectifying our spouse and then putting our spouse in position of authority over everything that happens in our lives is something that we were taught by the Greeks. Now let's go to what the Mahasar says about this. So in the book of Noah, in the Genesis story of the ancient Egyptians, and by the way, the ancient Egyptians had a Genesis story 3,000-4,000 years prior to the Greeks, who were the founders of Christianity. It basically states that Nebuchadnezzar, as the source, brought man and woman into manifestation in his image, in his likeness. It states that it created a seat of authority for both man and woman to rule the earth to the fullest extent in his image, in his likeness. Now, I want you to really take that in for a second. It said it created a seat for both man and woman to rule the earth in its image and its likeness to the fullest extent. It created 2 seats of authority for man and woman. Now that's in great contrast to what we've been trained. We've been trained that first man was created, then from a rib gave birth to woman, which puts woman in the complete servitude to man and complete enslavement to man, by which man has to conquer and it has control over all things in the world, and therefore woman is just a subservient piece to that. No, the ancient Egyptians said, no, Nebuchadnezzar brought forth a seat, a place for man and woman to rule the earth to the fullest extent in his image, in his likeness. It is expressing itself through both the masculine and the feminine. It is completely empowered through both the masculine and the feminine. Early on in the Genesis story, Nebuchadnezzar brought Shu and Tefnut into manifestation. And Shu is what the Chinese call Yang, and Tefnut is what the Chinese call Yin. So the universe is divided into these fundamental masculine and feminine principles. Your family also has a channel of masculine power and feminine power. Neither one has authority over the other, because a man can't gain power over the feminine principle because he's completely absent of the feminine. He doesn't have the power to control those things, and vice versa. Now, bear with me. We're going to get to the point here, but we have to break down how we got to this space, how the Eurocentric concepts got infiltrated into our system. You know, the concept of king, the word king, is not an African term. That's a European term. That's an English term. And that kingship is defined based on how the Europeans presented their expression of kingship, by which the kings of England had complete authority over everything that happened in society, and therefore woman was relegated as basically a sexual object simply to bear heirs to the throne. If you study the Roman system, the Greek system, these are all expressions of the Eurocentric kingship, and we use this term to identify our partners, or excuse my French, women identify their husbands, when in reality, that word has nothing to do with your culture, your nation. The ancient Egyptians entitled their kings Nesu. The concept of nasu basically represents the head male. Well, if your society is driven by, half of your society is driven by this masculine energy, then the head male is simply the authority over the masculine energy. And since you have a feminine channel of power going through your nation, then the queen, or what we call Mut, was the head authority of the feminine. Not at one time was one in authority over the other. Your family is divided in the same way. It has a channel of masculine, it has a channel of feminine. And the women is supposed to take authority over the feminine principles. The masculine is supposed to take authority over the masculine principles. You see, the king is the head male because every male in the family did the same exact thing as the king, as the nasu. He did not have to rule over the feminine processes of the society because women are quite better at doing that themselves. So in the society, we have to have an understanding that we are not here to destroy each other. But at the same time, woman is not here to be in servitude to man. Man is not here to be in servitude to woman. We are both here to express our authority through that channel of power that has been bestowed upon us by the source. Let's close on why this is relevant to us today. You have been trained to go out and partner with people simply because they look good, simply because they got a good backside, simply because they have money, they dress a certain way and all these different things. But you haven't been trained to look at your partner as to how are they going to perform in that channel of power and the duties and responsibilities provided by that channel of power. That is how you determine a good partner. But at the same time, when the concepts of Shep C, if you have those seats within your household, now you can define responsibilities and hold people accountable. Now we can plant our good seed. Now we can execute freely and drive outcomes within the family because my roles have been defined based upon the prestige of the masculine energy I project in fulfilling these roles for you, and vice versa. So what I'm saying is that you should love your mate, not be in love with your mate. You should love your mate, not because they look good, not because they smell good, not because they drive a good car, not because they're famous, not because they have all these things. But you should love your mate because of what that masculine energy does for the productivity and well-being of your family, from which you are a member of. You see, the transition of society, when we moved from the farms and moved from sharecropping into the big cities or whatever and got jobs or whatever, we started acting cool. Everything's about how you look, how you dress, or whatever the case may be. And then we fell away from the fundamental concepts that made us great in our societies and communities in Africa and even ancient America. And by following these codes that these people gave us, we have completely disintegrated any family continuity within our community. We are entering into relationships with each other not simply for sensual desire. We're entering into a relationship with each other to take advantage of the power of the feminine manifesting through the wife, of the power of the masculine manifesting through the husband. And you should be driven to acknowledge and appreciate that manifesting through the form of that particular person. But it's very interesting how you have been pulled away from that. You have been influenced to step away from that. You have been tricked to step away from that. Manipulated to step away from that through your entertainment, through your music, through everything that is projected through you to manipulate your senses, to manipulate you through eros. What's wrong with the millennials and the Generation Z today? They're completely enslaved to eros. But who is projecting this influence? It is the very people that control the rap labels, that can control the music industry, that control all these things. But if you look at their family structures, they have a 80% marriage rate, a very low divorce rate. And their societies are doing quite well. So when we define and look at our partners according to how they perform, according to that seat of authority, and how well the family benefits from that, we are able now to bask in the glory of love. We are now able to and capable of expressing love to our partner, not because they look a certain way, but simply because how they perform in a relationship and how that performance impacts the well-being of the family. And in that regard, I can manifest the true love, which is sacrificing my ego to perform in a manner that's beneficial for others within the family. That's what we call love. And in that capacity, we said that we are the receiver, and therefore we learn to respect and love the person who is providing, and we are the provider, where we're caring for those through the talents and skills manifesting through that platform of authority. That is the root platform from which the universe is made. When we define our duties and responsibilities based upon that masculine energy, based upon that power, that seat of power, we can now execute the good seed and bring forth great stability and well-being within the family. And we can also experience knowledge of self through the process that is also projected throughout the community. Let's meditate.